Hi, everyone, and welcome to How to Make AI Work for You. Today's webinar is sponsored by Glean and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Keith Ward. I'm with Actual Tech Media, and I'm really excited to be your moderator for this special event today. Now, before we get to what I'm sure is going to be a fantastic discussion, I need to cover some housekeeping items. The first thing to know is that we want your questions. Just drop them in the questions box in your webinar control panel for our experts. That Q&A panel is also the place to let us know about any technical issues you might be experiencing. First thing you want to do if you're having trouble hearing or seeing something is a browser refresh. You may need to do that a couple of times as well. That should fix most of your problems. If that doesn't work, please let us know in the Q&A and we will provide further technical assistance. Second, up there next to the questions tab is the handouts tab. So that is where you're going to want to go next because we have some great resources there, including a couple of important handouts from Glean. There's a PDF overview of their solution to get more information, and there's a link to book a demo with Glean. Fantastic stuff there, so check those out now. In that handout section, you're also going to find a link to the ATM Decisions Group, which is a panel of IT decision makers like you that you can apply to join to participate in some more in-depth events and other opportunities. In that handout section, you're also going to find a link to the ATM Events Center, which has our calendar of upcoming events like this one. Definitely check that out. And third, at the end of this webinar, we are going to be awarding a $250 Amazon gift card to one lucky registrant. Now, you do have to be in attendance during the entire live event to qualify for the prize. The official terms and conditions of that prize drawing can be found also in that handout section. Scroll to the bottom and you will find a link with the details there. And with that, why don't we get to today's fantastic content? You are about to meet Kat and Casey and Cal, and we are going to have a rollicking discussion about AI and what it can do for you and your operations. So I am so stoked to get started with that. So let's us get going. Everybody's ready. So we are going to hop on there now. So sit tight and we will be with you. And here we go, everyone. I am joined by Cal and Kat and Casey. I, of course, as you know, am Keith. So we've got a lot of those K sounds on today. You're going to be hearing that a lot, so get ready for it. So I'm going to have each of our guests introduce themselves. We're going to start with Cal, then we're going to move to Kat, and then Casey. So folks, take it away. Tell us a little bit about yourselves and why you're here today.
Hey there, I'm Cal Chrome. I'm the head of IT at Calm, and I've been in IT for more than 20 years, the last 10 of which have been in hypergrowth startups.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kat. I work at Glean, but prior to Glean, I was actually rolling Glean out on the IT team at my last company. So I've been on both sides of Glean.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for having us, Keith. My name is Casey. I have the privilege of leading our IT and business technology teams at Webflow. Been in the space for about 10 plus years now, and I'm really looking forward to this chat.
Okay, great. Well, thanks so much for being here. Really excited to have you today. So, let's do a real quick level set here, you might say. Since all of you have IT backgrounds and our audience also skews that way, I'd like to start with a more general question. Over the last 4 years, let's go back to the lockdown. Let's say back 2020. What have been some of the biggest challenges you've observed with hybrid slash remote work? And Kat, I'm going to throw this to you first.
Sure. Yes. Well, my company culture before COVID was 5 days in the office. And what I really loved about being on there with IT is we could be tapped on the shoulder, or we could look over someone's screen or over their shoulder, see their screen and kind of figure out what's going on pretty quickly. But of course, now with hybrid workforce, it's a lot harder to do this communication. It needs to be done either async or virtually. And it's been more challenging, but I think it's also given us the chance to just be more technically literate and able to kind of help troubleshoot kind of steps on our own, or help IT troubleshoot on our own prior to passing it off. So there's pros and cons there.
Exactly. And another one is just the complexity has ramped up so much. All right, Casey, here's one for you then. You've been in IT a while now, as you just mentioned. How has the role of IT evolved since you started your career?
Yeah, it's a great question. We've become far more than just resetting passwords and delivering laptops. We're now a value add to the business. I think that was never really thought of prior, especially in high growth companies. I think it's our job to really inject ourselves in areas of the business and really help provide value. Because very much, regardless of the level within a company and who we report to, again, I think our job is to add value where others may not have even thought of before, and do so with tech. So that's where I really see our position today, and arguably over the last few years, and that's really going to help us propel technology in organizations moving forward.
Absolutely. Great insights. Thank you for that. Okay. So that's a very brief introduction, mainly because we want to dive into the meat of this discussion. And for that, I want to go to Cal here for this question, for your perspective on AI. So we're hearing these days that many CIOs are the ones being tasked with building the AI strategy. Now, is that true for your organization? And kind of a little follow up, how has the scramble to make AI work at work impacted you and your role, Cal?
Well, I think in general, we're being tasked more with putting guardrails in place to the best extent we can. It seems like the individual teams are they're happy to find their own AI tools, and then they'll either start using them on their own or they'll come ask questions. Engineering wants to use GitHub Copilot, and marketing wants to use ChatGPT for this or that. So, our job in general seems to be primarily like the voice of reason. Don't put company data or sensitive data into an AI tool unless it's already approved. And then we have to do the due diligence and help people, like direct people to the pre-approved tools when they ask for something.
Okay. So you need, one of the things you're saying is you need a leader, someone to take charge, because it can be easy for everyone to kind of develop their own AI, strategy. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and we're not going to go find the tool for them unless they come very specifically. We just have to be in contact with teams to make sure that when they get a tool or they're looking at a tool, we're there to kind of help provide that guidance.
Right. Okay. So I'd like to ask Casey this question. What have you come across as a downside or danger of rolling out AI products or tools internally? What are you finding that are some of the gotchas here?
I think this is it's a very broad question. There's a lot of things I think we can tack on or touch on here, but excuse me, the two biggest that come to mind, very similar to SaaS sprawl, which we're all very familiar with. Everyone has a tool. We find them all the time. We have to go after them and kill them. Um, I think we're in the age of AI sprawl. Now there's all these different AI tools. There's a new company spinning up, seems like every week. And how do we figure out which ones are the ones that we should actually be investing in and putting the time in to bring the most value to our business? And some of the gotchas around that, very similar to the SaaS sprawl. Just like I mentioned, which ones do we actually use? Why? What's going to actually add the value from a security and privacy perspective? Just like Cal mentioned earlier, uh, it's very difficult to stop people from ingesting company data into LLMs. So again, finding the right tool or set of tools that allows us to put some guardrails around that, and obviously ones that the legal team, the privacy team, security team, they're also happy with, and allowing us to use these products in a responsible manner.
AI sprawl. Now that sounds like a buzzword to me, and I think it's I think you're absolutely right, Casey. That maybe one advantage we have though in the current environment is that these are just starting to happen now. So maybe there's a chance to get ahead of it a little bit more quickly, and maybe kind of control that sprawl before it gets totally out of hand. So, related to that kind of sprawl, Kat, I want to turn to you here. One of the dangers that sprawl can bring about is security issues, right? New security risks. So, the rise of AI has posed so many new questions around security and credibility, yet the answers are still a little fuzzy. How are you right now and Glean approaching these unknowns?
Yeah, I think when it comes to security, you think about your surface area, and that sprawl, especially in AI, is a big component of surface area, especially when each application is going to have its own AI component. You'll need to figure out where this AI is going outside of your tech boundaries, how that data is being stored outside of that area. So I think that's going to be a big differentiator in something like Glean, where we can sit on top of all of your applications, and that sprawl isn't happening, and we have a lot of security first initiatives there as well. So I think that's going to be a real big contender when it comes to these AI applications, and where your data is going in the future.
Okay, thanks very much. Now, for you, Cal, we're going to start talking about use cases for generative AI that work for the IT team. I think it's fair to say that generative AI, I always stumble over that. I have the hardest time saying that entire phrase. But generative AI is at the forefront right now of AI development. That seems to be the one that is in most companies' minds. So every software vendor, Cal, is now an AI vendor, essentially, because it is so pervasive. What use cases have you found to be viable now?
Yeah, everybody has their AI. It's almost obnoxious. Slack's like, hey, we've got AI. Zoom's got AI, and at the end of the day, so much of it is just the same features, and now they just something they can charge for. Then the best use case that I found, I'm a huge fan of Glean. Internal search is a really like helpful use case because everybody has so much SaaS sprawl. There's tools everywhere, data everywhere, and Glean has been the best option for finding all of our data in one place. The other thing is any kind of ticketing system in IT, we get asked the same questions all the time, sometimes phrased slightly differently. And so having an AI that can answer those questions or even just jump in the middle as the, hey, I think you might be asking about this is very helpful. Just the one challenge that you run into is it's only as good as the data source. And so if all of your knowledge base articles are 2 years out of date, all of those answers are going to be 2 years out of date. But search and answers for that are the best use cases I found.
Okay. It shouldn't be too hard for AI to spit out this sentence. Have you tried rebooting your computer? Right.
Absolutely.
So let me throw this. Let me throw this to you next, Kat. Let's talk about use cases for generative AI from your perspective.
Yes, and that's something we're still, early days discovering. But I feel like every week I find another great use case for it, and I'm hearing from a lot of my customers how they've been using the Glean AI or generative AI in their business. So ticket deflection, like Kel said, big use case, especially for IT. We find for sales, it's good at generating email content. They do a ton of reach outs all the time, but it helps them make it more personalized and without them spending too much time on that. It feels like the list goes on and on. So it's cool to see what other people are using it for and finding new ways to use it in the workforce.
Absolutely, absolutely. Casey, same question to you. What are the major use cases that you are seeing now for generative AI in your particular area?
Yeah, both Cat and Cal at +1 to both. Very very similar. I think if I were to add one, um, I'm seeing interesting use cases from our leadership team and also business operations as it relates to company OKRs, goals, capacity planning, project planning. By asking, for instance, in Glean chat, a simple question: what's the status of our OKRs for the quarter? Or what's holding up this project, or what have you? So some of those simple questions that we can inject into an AI model to help us make sense of our internal content and ultimately save not just the requester a bunch of time, but organically and potentially inevitably saving a lot of time for their respective org and the entire company. So it's a there's many levels, I will say, to AI use cases, specifically at Webflow, but I'm sure at other companies as well.
One of the things that's really interesting from my perspective about AI, and you have all three alluded to it uh, just right now, is how far it has permeated into organizations at kind of every level, from the highest level down to the lowest level. Who would have? I'm not sure how many of us would have predicted it could be a tier one help desk support feature. It just seems like it is everywhere, and it has so many uses and so many. And the more we build with it, the more we do with it, the more we find out that it can do, and the more use cases are suddenly discovered. Has that kind of been your experience? And anyone can answer that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I knew it. I knew all of us were going to go for it. Kat, please, after
Yeah.
you.
Just I like I said, every week I hear a new use case. People come across the board, talk about their CEO is using ChatGPT for something specific, and then I'm like, well, why don't they use Glean? Or our engineering team, kind of to Casey's point, asking for updates, helping it draft new release notes. There's just so many ways. Performance reviews, right? What did I do this last year that was significant? So everyone at the org can really utilize the AI to help with their work.
Sure. Casey, go ahead.
Yeah, what Kat mentioned, obviously. I'm trying to think of anything specific outside
We
of
can,
those.
yeah, we can also throw this open to Cal too, if
Yeah,
you
let's go to
had any
Cal.
thoughts you
Let's go to
wanted to
Cal.
share on that. Okay, sure.
I was just going to say it's been very interesting seeing how many use cases are not things I would have thought of. Actually, answering tickets as a tier one help desk is one of the first things I thought of. Like, great, AI can do this because so many of the questions are so simple. It's just, you need a little bit of knowledge base. But what's been interesting is that the recruiting tool has one. What are they using an AI for? Oh, no, when you submit your resume, it reads your resume and it will ask you questions to make sure that you know what you're talking about or see how the experiences you list match up with what the company is doing. Blew my mind when I saw that. So it's been great to see just how many novel uses there are out there for it.
I haven't seen that yet, but but that is fascinating. It's exactly what I was just mentioning too. Okay, now for you, Casey, has your organization considered any build scenarios for AI, either for your own product or for employees?
We have. I think to touch on our own product first, because it's been there are ongoing discussions. At Webflow, we're one of the leading content management and no code products out there. So something as simple as I don't know how to code in HTML, build a website for me. This is something AI can really help with. And so for internal use cases, it also sort of relates to the previous question. But I really tend to focus on the organizations that have, or the teams that have um, very manual work. Um, think about your legal team. They're reviewing contracts nonstop, whether it's things that we're submitting for new reviews, but the product that we sell, every single deal needs to have some sort of legal review. For the longest time, I thought some people on our legal team were actually bots. I didn't think they were real humans because the frequency of which they were able to read and spit out information in red lines was insane. So trying to really add a lot of value with AI by going after that problem or that challenge. So you can imagine this list goes on and on.
It always amazes me, Casey, how good AI is getting at these kinds of things where, like you're saying, it's hard to tell the difference, anymore in a lot of these scenarios. So, Kat, this is kind of specific for Glean. We've talked about search a bit, and this is, of course, your sort of wheelhouse. Many have tried to solve the problem of enterprise search, including a ton of internal intranet builds. So, what now is different in this new era of AI?
Yeah, I was someone who did the internal intranet build. So really wishing I had something like GPT or enterprise search the way Glean does it. That's why I, bought Glean and rolled it out internally at my last company. Um, I think what people are finding is that static, historic kind of old idea of intranet isn't the future, and it can be a lot more dynamic, it can be a lot more personalized, it can be um, a lot more easy, so you don't have to hire like 5 content managers to keep this up. AI can really help be that content manager, or you can go down to one. So and then those folks can actually do things that they want to do, not necessarily content manage, because that wasn't something I wanted to do. So there's a lot of possibilities there that AI can really help with in making that just a more dynamic, a more interesting place for employees to go to.
Another thing that I imagine that AI has improved on in terms of enterprise searches, the answers that it's giving are much better maybe than they used to be, which also is going to cut down on help desk tickets and things like that, because it will have a better understanding of exactly where to go, because it'll even understand the questions better, maybe than it used to. Are you finding that?
Absolutely, Keith. It's no longer let me tag all these keywords on all these contents. It's reading all the content, it's understanding what the content is saying, and is much better able to give answers, find documentation, provide better responses overall.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about measuring ROI on AI. Okay, this is obviously going to be a huge topic. If you're going to be making changes to your environment, and AI can be very fundamental to these changes, you're going to need to make a business case in many cases to whoever is spending the money. So I want to ask you about this, Cal. What are the costs associated with implementing and maintaining generative AI systems?
I mean, there's the actual software costs or whatever the licenses are. However they bill, whether it's per uses of the API key, any like server infrastructure you have to spin up. But honestly, I always find that the like legal compliance security review is just a huge time sink. The amount of hours spent in figuring out, hey, okay, we've decided we like this tool. Now you have to get through all of the red tapes and all of the hurdles to get that deployed. Nobody wants to be the one that let a bad tool through or something that leaks data. And then honestly, the other part that personally is meeting with vendors and hearing the sales pitches, because as we've said, everybody has an AI tool. And so, it's deflecting those or going through those demos is a huge amount of time.
Okay. Yeah. What about the idea of tool consolidation? How does that fit in there with the overall ROI?
I mean, if that's to me, there's no ability to consolidate tools super well that I have found, because every company I've worked at is going to have Dropbox and Google Drive. They're going to have multiple tools doing the same job, and you have a lot of infighting or just even more time spent debating than it's worth it. If I can get somebody to use one tool and we're only paying for one tool for that person, I don't care if we have 3 tools across the company.
Right. Absolutely. Does anyone else want to speak to the idea of tool consolidation? I don't know if you have had personal experience with that yet that you can speak to.
I have personally, I've done a few migrations off of tools and getting that data into other places. It is time consuming. I did a Gmail migration. It took about 6 months of my time. Again, wish I had ChatGPT. I wrote a lot of internal comms on that. That would have been just much easier to spin up with AI. And then Dropbox as well. So migrating that, it's very, very time consuming. I'd have to, do a backhand calculation to see if the time I put in it and all the efforts actually paid for the contract itself. I think over the long term, sometimes it can, and again, surface area, limiting how much surface area you have out there with your technology was another factor. But overall, these things are very time consuming and challenging to consolidate.
So, Casey, a similar question for you here. In these early days of AI implementation and usage, how are you thinking about the ROI on AI products and tools?
AI to me has quickly become, and when I say quickly, I mean it's been generally available for about 12 months or so now. It's quickly become the internet 2.0. It's the thing that we will not just want but need moving forward. And with that, the ROI associated is it's very difficult, I think, for many organizations to quantify these days. I'm having a very hard time personally quantifying that data, the ROI data between productivity and our tool stack in general, but now throwing AI in the mix and the vast amount of use cases that we've all spoken about and so far, it's becoming infinite, and trying to think about all of them. So tying that back to ROI today, me personally, this is a really difficult challenge to do so for every organization, but it behooves us to really take a very high level approach and really look at the business and across all teams and organizations to figure out where again AI can add value. And because it's
Mhm.
relatively new, and because a lot of other org leaders are not probably thinking AI first, I really do believe it's our job to do so. And luckily, we got an early win as an organization bringing in a tool like Glean, and so now anything that we suggest is basically approved. But we do so responsibly, and it's always best for us to try and again tie user productivity and use cases back to a dollar amount. That's ultimately what counts.
So, so related to that, then, Casey, are you seeing, or is the industry seeing ROI models that are starting to emerge that can quantify the potential savings that AI can bring? I mean, again, we've been we've been talking about AI for a few years now. I mean, anyone in this space, it's been out for a long time in certain ways, but it has come to the forefront now. But I'm wondering how mature in your do you have any sense of how mature the ROI models are for AI for ROI for AI right now? Is there anything developing that is becoming standard, or are we still not there yet?
I haven't seen anything personally.
Mm.
I do believe it's coming, and to support that, I'm seeing a lot of consultant firms. I won't name names, but some of the big players that are coming in and doing observations of IT departments and security departments, whether it's for compliance or IPO readiness, and AI is being included in the conversations, and rightfully so. It's it's going to become even more of a value add to the business, but then also it creates additional complexities around compliance, around regulations, depending on the business that you're in or the industry that you're in. But ultimately, it's a highly subjective area given how a company operates. But I mean, the short of it, I think we're still in the infancy stages, but it's coming quickly, and I think we're playing a little bit of catch up because AI moves so quickly. But I think it's coming.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Who? Go ahead, Cal.
I just want to add, I actually have seen only one real use case that showed like we have an ROI comparison, and that was specifically with software engineers doing some level of coding stuff using a Copilot type tool, and they gave two different sets of engineers essentially the same task. One team could use the AI, and the other team couldn't, and they did that like 3 or 4 different times, and they're like, okay, we found 15 to 20% improvement, in time. So that is
Mhm.
the only case I've seen where they were able to put any kind of like efficiency or productivity boost. I'm looking for more, but there is one.
That's a very significant number too. Even
Mhm.
if it's the first one, it does show the potential power that we're talking about, with AI. So Kat, I also wanted to ask you then a little bit about this. Some of the ways that people are talking about using AI initially to get the most gains, the most ROI gains, are things like uh, time savings for productivity. So finding things, starting work. Can you talk about that a little bit, about some of those time savings for worker productivity?
Yes. And to both Casey and Kel's point, I've scoured because this is a big big thing for Glean, right? Is to tell people, okay, look, this is the ROI you're getting investing in our product. So that time savings question is our biggest question, and we do ask our users how much time they think they have saved, and we give kind of, the generic like 0 to 10 minutes, 10 minutes plus, like up to hour plus, and the majority is in like 30 minutes to 2 hours time savings per week, that I've seen come in through those surveys. So while it is subjective, people see a lot of value and time savings in that. There might be people that are measuring this on their employees more so than just that subjective, and can better speak to that. But we're definitely hearing a lot of time savings from folks.
That's great to hear, Kat. It's also worth mentioning, too, I think here that we are also at the really still kind of at the beginning stages of using AI to increase these efficiencies. As we get further down here and as we do more of it, more development, we're going to find new ways. And the methods that are in place now are going to be fine tuned, aren't they? And they're going to get better. So those ROI increases are only going to accelerate, I believe, in time. Would you agree with that, Cal?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, we are still very early. Everybody's got a tool, but some of those tools are very useful. And as people, I mean, you have to train people on anything. And so they kind of learn how to, oh, wow, this AI can actually answer my question. Oh, hey, it'll come up with a use case, I can solve. And after you've done that 10 times, it just kind of works into the back of your head. You start thinking, oh, let me go ask that question to the AI. Let me try and find a way to use it. So
Yeah.
it snowballs.
I wanted to
And
ask, yes, go
sorry,
ahead.
Keith, just to add to that point, and why I loved Glean so much, even just as a search engine, is you're not just thinking of like your own time saved when you're able to search for something. It's that person that you would tap or ping on the shoulder whose time you're also saving. So there is a lot more there that's harder to measure, but like that is definitely getting ROI.
Kind of a snowball effect there,
The
right?
snowball, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. One of the use cases I wanted to ask specifically about for ROI measurement, and this is, I don't know if there's any models or what is being attempted, is new employee ramp ups. Now, this is kind of near to my heart because my company is now owned by a much larger company, and this happened about a year ago. So I'm very conscious of learning all the new stuff, for getting onboarded into a new environment. Can any of you speak to that particular issue in terms of new employee ramp up time?
Absolutely. I'm going to dive into this one because I was literally just having a conversation about this. It's one thing to expect, and speaking directly about Glean as a search engine, it's one thing to expect the employees at your company have been around for 2, 3, 4, 5 years to know where things are. But when you onboard a new user, they're coming in blind. I just think of them as, and I share this publicly, so I'm not just saying this here, but they're like the baby deer. They can't walk, and they're trying to figure it out. So, in my sense, Glean really helps with that experience. And to give you some data around this, we send out surveys quarterly, annually, and the biggest and most important feedback we've gotten from our new users in the first, let's say, 6 to 12 months is Glean. Biggest question is, why have I never heard of this tool before Webflow? Where has it been hiding? And you can imagine all the similarities, but Glean has been a major value add for us. And speaking about ROI, and like you mentioned, Keith, that's almost it's invaluable. Giving your users time back, the sentiment that they have, the feeling that, hey, I made the right decision joining this company because they use products that not just every company is using, this brand new thing I never heard of. Maybe someone took a risk and did it, and now it's really adding a lot of value to me and the rest of the business.
I think we call that, Casey, a eureka moment, right? When something like that happens and you're like, where has this tool been all my life, right? It's like, it seems to make so much sense. Cal or Kat, would either of you like to speak to the what Casey was just talking about in terms of the ramp up time for new employees?
Yeah, I'd be happy to at least just say we replaced the link that was, hey, here's kind of the like table of contents for a wiki. We replaced that with here's the video of how Glean works, and it's just a presentation I did in front of the company. But they watch for 30 minutes, and in that video, some of the things I search for are things that they're going to look for. When are the company holidays? What's the policy for expensing these things? But now they walk away from that going, I don't have to figure out where anything is. I don't have to look through an index and where's the page about that. It's just I can search here and I'll find it. And that's been huge. I haven't gotten that same feedback yet, but that's got to be the sentiment because I know how transformative it is.
Right.
Yeah, and just speaking as a CSM from a lot of my customers with their pulse surveys, employee pulse surveys, Glean has been consistently mentioned as a game changer, as one that has bumped one of my customers up 10 points on their pulse survey because people now have the tools they need to get their job done. Is that question? And also when I'm giving demos of Glean, onboarding is my biggest use case. I always start with that because Glean not only is able to surface that, but Glean knows your company's language. So people can ask, every acronym, every language each company speaks, they can look these up and Glean will actually let them know what those words mean, which is pretty cool.
That's hard data. I mean, it's mergers and acquisitions can be so fraught. They can be so hard to do, and anything you can do that can ease that onboarding. I mean, it's just gold because, as we all know, the IT industry is an industry of M&A, isn't it? I mean, it's constantly happening, shows no signs of stopping, nor really will it. In as far as I can tell, I've been in the industry and covering it, formerly as a journalist for a long time, and it's just accelerating, it seems like. And so something like this can be such an important factor in those M&As and in onboarding new employees. So yeah, that's just such great stuff. Now, wanted to ask each of you, and we'll start with Casey, and then we'll go to Kat and Cal. So remember your order: Casey, Kat, and Cal here. You're sitting down, we're going to do a hypothetical. You're sitting down with a customer. You can give them one piece of actionable advice as they're thinking about deploying AI in their organization. So obviously this is a question about priorities. What is the one piece of advice that you tell that customer? Casey, you first.
Why did I have to go first?
Because I like putting you on the spot. You look
Yeah,
like you're
all
ready
right.
for it.
Let's do it. The one piece of advice, I think I would start with something a bit generic and dive deep. In the interest of time, I'll try to get through it quickly, but expect the unexpected and the unknowns. It's broad and a bit ambiguous on purpose. I think because, like we've been talking about, AI we're scratching the surface. We've seen a major leap using ChatGPT as an example from 3.5 to 4. I'm honestly a bit fearful of how good 5 will be, or the next iterative version. Some of the results we're getting from Claude and with Anthropic are amazing. So really to expect the unexpected, like I mentioned earlier, really sit at the highest altitude first, start to work your way down and really understand the use cases that artificial intelligence can really add and the value that can bring to your business outside of just it being a Slack bot or even even as a Chrome extension or something really basic. How do you inject it into your quote to cash process? How do you inject it into your sales ecosystem and your financial ecosystem and just everything throughout the business? Inject it in little ways to help fill gaps, but beyond that, turn those gaps and the bridges between into spaceships. Like make it something completely different that you're not even thinking about, because that's what AI can do for you.
That's a great answer, and it's so true what you said, Casey. As much as we think we know about AI? Really, we don't know anything, do we? I mean, in terms of the larger picture, there we've scratched the surface, and that's it. Okay, Kat, one piece of actionable advice, and then your customer is going to run out the door. What do you tell them?
Oh man, yeah. I'm so what I actually have to end up saying for a lot of my customers currently is that it's still super, super early days. Like this technology is in its infancy and it can't do everything you want it to do, especially around structured data. You need to think of this more as someone who's read everything. At the company or on the internet up until like March 2023 when OpenAI updated its LLM, and so it's someone who is just the most knowledgeable that you can ask about versus trying to get it to do math for you or look at your spreadsheets and read cells. It's just not that's not what it's for. It's for creating content. It's for answering kind of those more strategic questions and helping you get data from your company or the internet.
Absolutely. All right, Cal. Now, unlike Casey, you've had lots of time to ponder this question, so we're expecting a super duper answer from you. No pressure here at all. So, one piece of actionable advice for a customer.
Yeah, in all of my time listening, I came up with my wisdom is to the man with an AI hammer, everything looks like an AI nail. Really just like consider and try to push, to identify exactly what specific use case and function are you going to solve before you just approve or pick a new AI tool. Start small, start with just an open AI license and make sure people understand how to use it, even if you have to do extra steps. It doesn't have to be a built-in tool that already has access for you to test it, manually do things with it before rolling it out. Even if the person selling you a tool, swears it will solve everything for you, you can kind of test for yourself how it will work first, and don't just roll out AI because it's AI and we need to have it.
That makes a lot of sense, Cal. It is AI can be, depending on how you roll it out, extremely disruptive, to your operations. And the same idea with testing your software release, right? Typical to roll it out on a small scale to a small group of power users or whatever before you roll it out on a much larger scale. So that's really good advice. Well, everyone, this has been so much fun for me today. I've enjoyed this conversation, such great insights and wisdom from you AI experts. And I do notice now that we have been getting a host of great questions coming in from our attendees. They are extremely interested in this topic, as I thought they would be. So what do you say we get to some questions now? You ready for some fun Q&A?
Absolutely.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. All right, so one here, I'm going to throw this to Casey first. So they want to know, the attendee wants to know, Casey, given all of the noise in the space, in the AI space, how do you decipher which vendors are actually worth exploring? Now, this is super important because when something big comes down the pike like AI, which is so transformational, you're going to have tons of companies just entering the space, it seems like, every day. So this is a great question. How do you separate the wheat from the chaff in this space?
Yeah, the TLDR is do your due diligence, like everything. It's up to us to do our homework, to evaluate different products. Sure, we may want to take a risk here and there, but ultimately it's our responsibility to not only empower and enable the business, but protect the business. That's the job of every employee at every company, at least it should be. So doing your due diligence is the most important. Go evaluate not just something that you heard about because it's cool, but a few others in the space. And I'll even tie this back to Glean. If you do that with Glean, you'll find out that Glean is the product you want, and it will show up 10 times out of 10 because I did the same thing. Someone told me about Glean. It seemed like the shiny new tool that I had never heard of before. I tried it out, but I put it up against 2 or 3 other products, didn't stand a chance. That was a simple RFP that held a lot of value and ultimately a massive, massive win for us at Webflow. So do your homework.
Do your homework. Absolutely. Okay. Here's one that I think is a good one for Kat. Are your employees allowed to use Chat GPT? And if so, what guidelines is your team putting around usage? I know for me, Kat, I do use ChatGPT in a number of ways and find it enormously helpful. And my company is still trying to figure out exactly what the guardrails are going to be because of the power that it has. So, what would your advice be about guidelines around using ChatGPT for employees?
Yeah, so we can use it at Glean, but we can also use it from Glean. So we have a general mode on Glean. So that's a very easy toggle there, depending on the use case. A lot of my customers, however, have been like had been going rogue and utilizing ChatGPT, but they've been uploading company content in there, which is definitely something that IT and security folks don't want them doing. So that's why Glean is a great answer to that, because it's gated and secured with all of your company knowledge, where people don't have to send that outside of your company walls. So I think just advising them to be very careful as what content they actually upload, how they're utilizing that, and if for any internal use cases they consider something like Glean that is more secure.
Great. Great to hear. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I got one that I am going to throw over to Cal now. And this is kind of related to the ROI, but a little bit different perspective here. The questioner wants to know, how can we measure the success or effectiveness of generative AI? I don't know why I have trouble with it. Generative AI in our operation. So this goes beyond ROI. And I wanted to kind of add my own kind of spin on this, Cal. Have you developed any kind of key performance indicators, for example, or what other measurements do you think might be useful to determine how well AI is working?
So I'm going to start by asking that question to ChatGPT. I'll be right back. I think the best like metric I have found for how to tell if a tool like this is going to be valuable or is valuable is really just seeing the utilization. Like I'm going to keep using Glean, but I look at, okay, we've got 250 people who have been assigned Glean or have logged in once. How many of them are actively using it in any given time span? And when you see, wow, look, like 80% or 90% of the people who have this tool use it in a given week, that's really high utilization. Clearly it's valuable. They're finding it valuable. And even if you don't have the ability to get a hard ROI number, the utilization alone, you can just ask people if you've got an insights, tool or function that's built in, use that just to see, because, they're not going to use it if it's not working for them.
Exactly. So yeah, that's a really important point, I think, Cal. We know when something saves us time, don't we? I mean, that's why we use templates to put it in a really simple form. It saves us time, even if we don't, calculate. It saves us 5 seconds. It saves us 5 minutes. You know that it's saving you time over and over and over again. Okay, I've got one more question, and I'm going to give this to Kat now. Someone wants to know, and this is actually very important. I think we've gotten a lot of folks super interested to find out more about Glean and how it works. So this person wants to know, this attendee wants to know, what is the learning curve like for using Glean in your environment? Is it really steep? Is it moderate? How would you describe implementing Glean and then getting to know how it works?
I love this question because I've had people who've rolled Glean out say people log in and they get it like instantly. Ideally a zero learning curve. We look a lot like Google. We feel a lot like Google. Our founders have roots there. So if you've used Google, which I want to say 99.999% of our audience probably has used Google, if not a good 100, you're gonna feel pretty comfortable using the tool. The AI component, if you've used something like ChatGPT, it's very, very similar. So very low learning curve for the majority of users.
Low learning curve speaks to my heart because we want the benefits, obviously, of a technology like that. But if it's going to take you a year to get up to speed, then you have to start to wonder, are you going to find the ROI? And not only that, Kat, but are people going to be patient enough to learn it. So the
And
easier you can make it, the more they're going to adopt it. It seems like a no-brainer to me.
totally, Keith. And to speak to that point, and I know Cal and Casey probably feel this too, like as IT, you do roll out a lot of technology that users don't necessarily want to use. They grumbly, begrudgingly will use the technology, but they don't absolutely love it. I've had IT leaders tell me like Glean was the easiest rollout. It brought me credibility to my company. People loved it so much that like I built trust with my employees from rolling out Glean.
Okay, so I am going to throw this to Cal and then Casey. Can you speak to how it has been, that learning curve for having Glean in your usages in your environments? Is in other words, is Kat telling us the truth here? This is not just this is not just architecture, right? As we call it. So speak to your own experiences, Cal, first, and then you, Casey.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned, looking at how many people are using the tool for me is a huge measure of success. And Glean is very easy to use. It is a Google search for your internal tools, no question. I have never had anybody be like, "Hey, how do I do this?" The only question that I've ever gotten about like the functionality of Glean is, "Hey, when can we get this connected to more tools? Like, when can it search a larger array of places because I want to get X, Y, or Z in there, and it's not finding that." It's so easy to use that anybody here could do it, and my 3-year-old daughter will figure it out if she hasn't already.
Okay, thank you. Now, Casey.
Yeah, I can confirm to everyone, Kat is telling the truth. Yeah, it's an amazingly easy tool to use. As soon as we rolled it out, instantly adopted. The adoption is interesting. I'll be relatively quick here, but our initial rollout, we saw about 60 to 70% adoption, which honestly it was a little higher than I expected, because ultimately people work the way they work, and some don't want to change, some do. So for us, we got a little creative to drive. Let's say we're around 85% adoption now, which is pretty high. And we got a little creative with that delta of like 20 to 25% by steering people there in maybe non-organic ways. Like, hey, we just posted an announcement in Slack. Well, now our internal comms team can use a quick little shortcut in Slack to then post it in Glean. So the people that don't necessarily use Glean all the time, well, now we have an archive of announcements in Glean. So if you want to see all the announcements that the company made, go check it out in Glean. And naturally, it's happened so many times already. Like, oh, where's this tool been? Why haven't I been using it? Let me check it out. And then inevitably, they start using it, they start changing, they start telling their teams. And so I think that's also helped with some of the adoption and engagement with Glean as well. But yeah, very, very easy to use. And that's where it starts.
The other thing, though,
go ahead, Cal.
The other thing you can do if you haven't already is I like to use Glean as a let me Google that for you. When somebody asks a question that I know is in there, I just use the /Glean in Slack, and it's great because it, put this in the channel. Great, here's that answer. And at the bottom it says like, you can search next time by doing /Glean. And so they're kind of just like, rub it in their faces. You didn't need me. You could have found this on your own.
And leading again to more time savings, right? More ultimate ROI, because you're not having to do the same thing over and over again. Well, folks, this has been a real delight for me today. AI is something that is on everybody's mind. There's still a lot of fear and trepidation, and there's a lot of growing awareness on how useful it can be. And I think we've learned a lot more about it today. And I want to thank you so much for your time and your insights and your comments. It's been an absolute pleasure for me. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you, Keith.
Great to meet you all.
Well, I don't know about you, but I thoroughly enjoyed that chat. The presenters there, my guests, were so knowledgeable. I have a much better understanding after that of how AI plays out, in the real world, where we all live. I also had a great time talking with the group. So thanks again, everyone, for being on with me. And with that, folks, we're getting near the end of this event today. But before we wrap up, we have one more piece of business, the Amazon gift card prize drawing. And the winner of the $250 card for this event today is Christian Velasquez from Arkansas. Congratulations, Christian. We will be in touch to get you your card ASAP. And with that, everyone, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank Glean and Casey, Cal, and Kat for such a fun time today and for making this event possible. As always, to you attendees, thanks for being here with us. Thanks for your great questions, and thanks for tuning in. That concludes the event. I'll see you in the next one. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.